All right, so we're going to pick up with where we left off yesterday in market analysis. So we covered macroeconomics yesterday. Today, we are going to cover industry analysis. So there's a couple of things to do with industry analysis. One of them is called SCP, or Structure, Conduct, Performance. This is developed by McKinsey. We teach it in MCE, but it's basically a way of looking at the industry. For any of you folks that have been to business school, Porter's 5 Forces, developed in 1980 by Michael Porter, essentially the structure portion of the SCP model. So they're similar. And then SWOT analysis, usually used on an individual company basis. So structure, conduct, performance. So changes in the structure of the industry. So this is for commercial vehicle tires from, I don't know, 2017, somewhere in that neighborhood. Talks about how the industry is structured. What about capacity, issues like that? Changes in conduct. How does that structure affect how the players work with one another or against one another? So, here it's saying they split up, the OEM tire manufacturers split up the commercial truck manufacturers amongst them. They don't really compete against each other. So Bridgestone does us and Volvo, and Goodyear does Daimler and Navistar. And then Michelin kind of does all four. And then how does that industry structure and conduct lead to performance? Usually this is economic performance or performance on the income statement. And then over here, we've got external shocks. So these are things that happen to the industry, and how does the industry respond to them? Or how do you think the industry will respond to them? These are the implications. Down here are the predictions. This is all kind of a holistic way of looking at an industry, so you can kind of get an idea of what the industry is doing. This is another way of looking at the industry, and it uses the structure piece here plus some of the conduct piece. So the structure piece are new entrants, substitute products, buyers, and suppliers. That's all the structure piece from SCP. And the conduct piece is this intensity of rivalry, which is this up here. How do they compete with one another and within the industry? You can see some Porters. There's some links here. So here's a Porter's 5 Forces from a company called, what the heck's the name of it? It's a stock market company that does stock market research. Value Line. You see it a lot in the libraries, but it's just talking about, each of the different areas. And there's no real pictures or anything. It's just a narrative. This is a template that'll kind of help you write it. Here's some more stuff on it back here in the back. And it talks about what each of them is. But these things are kind of tough to write, especially the first few, but they get easier as you do them more and more. The SCP model is probably easier to write. And then you've got the SWOT analysis, which you've probably seen in business school. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this is internal, this is external to the company. You'll see it split up that way too. Here's an example of Value Line, again, writing a SWOT analysis on Nike from 2015. You know, and it's just a narrative.
Rick, when do we typically do this SWOT analysis? When it is required?
So it's not required, but when I'm out visiting a supplier, and to do a SWOT analysis, you have to have access to their senior management. If I have access to their senior management, I will write up a brief SWOT analysis after I leave and go back to the hotel room or something.
No, I mean, is it applicable whenever there is a new product development or when there is a new supplier onboarding? When do we do this?
You do this when you're picking up a new industry to try to understand the industry. So if you got a new desk, hopefully there's some stuff that's been given to you from the previous person, but usually not. I would do this on the industry. And then for the major players in the industry, I would try and do a SWOT analysis. And a lot of times you can call up the companies and talk to their senior management. Some, you know, the smaller companies especially love talking about this stuff. So as a new commodity manager, hopefully you would come in, you would see the SCP model analysis and then SWOT on the major companies, and then you would also see the commodity strategy. So those all get tied together. Of course, we don't really have any place to keep it, but you know, that's the theory. Here's a template for how to write SWOT. Just kind of list the stuff. We got some other templates too. Let's go back to where we were at. So that's SWOT. That's done on the major, one SWOT analysis done on each company, the major companies in the industry that you want to talk about or look at. So there's also industry benchmarks, CAPS, which is the Center for Advanced Purchasing Studies, which is a branch of ISM. Has a number of industry benchmarks that you can look at. Of course, it'll cost you to buy them. There's supplier research. Suppliers may be willing to disclose changes they see in the market conditions. So this is what when I sit down and talk with their senior managers about, you know, the SWOT report. They're usually they're pretty open to talk about where they see their strengths and weaknesses, and mostly their strengths and their opportunities. Nobody really likes to talk about their weaknesses and their threats, but they will sometimes. Third-party market intelligence, usually you got to pay for it, but that's what I was showing you with Value Line and some of the S&P, and there's a number of firms, independent companies that will do market research for you, but it costs. Economic indicators. So heavy truck is a industry that's a cyclical, mature industry, but it doesn't necessarily go with the national economy. It's not in lockstep with it. It has its own cycle, which is dependent on the national economy to a large degree, but it's not exactly the same as that cycle. What we look at to predict how many trucks we're going to sell, housing starts and auto production. Both of these use a lot of truck transportation to move parts. GDP level indirectly, you know, when GDP rises, so will transportation requirements. Unemployment rate, it's inversely related to GDP. So when you got a rising gross domestic product or you're making more and more stuff, your unemployment rate's dropping. The ISM report on business we looked at last time, you know, if it's above 50, GDP is expanding and positive. If it's below 50, it's negative. So there's two reports. There's one on the service industry and one on the manufacturing industry. And the service industry has been positive with the exception of December for the last year. Manufacturing industry has been negative for the last 6 months. And then there's industry backlog, net truck orders. These will look at OPCOM looks at these. Usually you'll see the truck orders peak or bottom first, followed by approximately 6 months for retail sales. It's just kind of a lag in there. Now we got something called the Kraljic matrix, kind of a funny spelling, because this guy, Peter Kraljic, in 1983, which is what, 40 years ago? 40 years ago. He published an article in the Harvard Business Review that used this 2x2 matrix that prioritized procurement decisions, or where you're going to put your resources in procurement. Business impact on one axis and market complexity on the other. So you got strategic, bottleneck, tactical, and leverage, and I'll kind of run you through them. So business impact you can think of as percentage of total purchases. So this is a high percentage of your dollars spent, low percentage of your dollars spent. And then down here, you can look at it, complex product complexity, or really what it is a tendency towards monopoly. So this is a low tendency over here, which means there's a lot of firms competing in this industry. And there's a high tendency towards monopoly over here, which means there's only 1 or 2 firms competing in this industry. So your strategic or critical category is a high spend with only a few firms in the industry. This is engines, transmission, basically anything in powertrain, and that type of things. Big spend, there's only a few suppliers. The bottleneck is there's only 1 or 2 companies that are making the parts you need, but it's a low percentage of your spend. These are your integrated circuits, fuel filters, and some other stuff like that. It's just a pain in the neck because usually the companies in this industry, these industries are just a pain to deal with because they know you got to come to them for the parts because there's only 1 or 2 in the industry. And it's a low spend, so they're just a pain. What you try to do with these is get engineering to find something else. Leverage. So this is a high spend, but there's a lot of companies in the industry, and this is where purchasing loves to operate. This is tires and metal benders and all kinds of things like that. So we can work off one supplier against the other because there's a number of people in the industry that all pretty much can meet our needs. And then tactical or non-critical is a low spend with a low tendency towards monopoly or a lot of suppliers. This is your fasteners, some other type of stuff like that, where you just try to get the supplier to supply it and send you a monthly bill. That's what we do with Optimus and a few of these other guys. It's like, you guys go stock them and count them and all that junk and just send me a bill at the end of the month. So that's your Kraljic matrix. All right, Kepner-Tregoe analysis. You'll see some questions on this. This is a rational process analysis. It's defined as systematic procedure developed to apply critical thinking. So it's got 4 steps: situational appraisal, problem analysis, decision analysis, and potential problem opportunity analysis. So create a deviation statement, describe 4 dimensions of the problem, establish possible causes, test possible causes of the problem, and verify true cause of the problem. So you understand what the problem is, and then you can come up with a solution. A couple of articles if you want to read more about this. All right. So which of the following is the least important reason supply managers need to forecast? To what? The least important. And this is one of these ISM questions that is kind of hard to understand where they're coming from.
I'm guessing price, maybe?
Yeah. It's probably not going to be A, because we use forecasting to forecast quantities all the time. And we also use it for price. I think it's going to be B or C. Anybody got any other guesses?
Delivery time.
Yeah, I'd probably go with that, but I'm not confident that's the answer. Let's see what these guys say.
It's just a guess.
Yeah. B, extent, I don't know, wait a minute. That's the wrong question. We gotta go here. C, yeah, delivery time. Not a reason we develop a forecast. All the others, I guess, are. All right, so yesterday on the chat, you got 2C1 questions. Let's pull up questions 2 through 6. And let's review them at, let's go with 353. Or just raise your hand when you get done with them.
Which question do we need to do? Question number?
2C1, questions 6 through 10.
Okay.
So if I go here, it should be on the chat. 2C1. I'll go to the second page. Barney, just raise your hand when you get done. Okay. Let's go take a look at some answers here. Number one is, oops, we don't want one, we want number 6. Number 6 is Charlie, which is 2 and 3. So identifying leading indicators and using those indicators to project future market conditions. Number 7 is Delta. Supply management would normally not be involved in the establishment of financial standards. You're looking for an exception there. 8 is Charlie. Market capacity, alternative sources, and profiles of suppliers are all key components. Charlie is not. Forward buying is an activity that the supply management company may or may not decide to engage in, which means you're buying ahead of requirements. 9 is Bravo. Either Porter's or SCP model reports will analyze the industry. And 10 is Delta. The Kepner-Tregoe rational process analysis. Systematic procedure developed to apply critical thinking for the purpose of solving problems. All right, any questions? If not, we'll start on more forecasting, supply forecast tomorrow.
Thank you,
Talk to
Rick.
guys later.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
bye.